folks. Grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys presents Tales of the Trophies, the SEC's greatest rivalries. Yes, I am not Mike. Mike is incapacitated this week, having a lot of life things going on and could not make it, but I have two lovely guests. Welcome back, Whiskey Joe, and welcome back, Nick Doyle. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah,
nice to be back.
Happy, honored to be back, really.
Well, I thought it was also very fitting because the rivalry trophy we're talking about today is the Makala trophy, and that's played between Florida State and Florida. And we just happen to have a resident of Florida, somewhat newly over the last couple of years, and Nick Doyle. So I hope you bring all of your Florida knowledge to today's episode. Because you're going to need some of it.
Yeah, it's 2 years old. So, it's recency bias at its best.
2 years, you're right in that sweet spot. Either you can still claim that you're too new, or you can be like, well, I've been there for 2 years. I know what I'm talking about.
I mean, both these teams have been a big bag of meh in the time that I've been here. And I mean, Florida State's been awful, except apparently until this year.
Yeah.
Decided to play football, but
Yeah, it should be a pretty interesting matchup here, but we can talk about that in a little bit. So why don't we get into what we are drinking? So today we are drinking something called a bourbon smash. And why I chose this one is because it's also sometimes referenced as a Florida bourbon smash. So it kind of has the Florida aspect to it. But basically, this is very, very similar. I feel like it's like a Florida version of the mint julep. So very similar to what we did a couple weeks ago. And honestly, I had some mint left in my fridge. So I thought, hey, why don't I try and find another drink that has to do with mint to get that out of my fridge. So the ingredients are 2 ounces of bourbon or whiskey. I guess you can use a rye if you want. And also a 3/4 ounce of simple syrup, 4 to 5 mint leaves, and also 3 large women. Jeez.
3 large women.
Lemon wedges. And then 1 mint sprig garnish as well. So what you want to do is you just want to muddle the mint and lemon together first. Then you can add the simple syrup, bourbon, and some ice and shake it until it's mixed. And then you strain it and pour it into a rocks glass over cubed ice, and then add the little bit of sprig to garnish it. So
back to the beginning, was it 3 big booty bitches?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have to be big.
Okay.
And booty.
Just wanted to clarify. All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. Cheers. Ooh, I like that one. I know we're kind of like heading into fall, so this is more of probably a summer drink, but Doyle, it's warm down
Hanging
in
on for
Miami
dear life
still.
with that one. It's October.
Yeah.
It was like 95 degrees out when I was playing with my children at 5 o'clock. So
there you go. So
there really aren't seasons here. It's just either raining or not.
So there you go. You get a little bit of refreshment here, a little lemon zest for you. But just, I mean, there is some history behind this drink. It was actually recognized all the way back in 1887, which was pretty interesting to me, in Jerry Thomas's Bartender's Guide. But essentially, it was after mint juleps, because mint juleps have been around, if you remember, when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, have been around since like the 1700s. So it was after that, and it was right around the time that whiskey sours became very popular as well. So I think it was just kind of like, someone mixing the two together. And apparently in the 1980s and 90s, there was a guy named Dale DeGroff, and he was one of the more popular bartenders in New York City at the time. And apparently he worked at a place called the Rainbow Room, and he loved this drink and made it all the time. And it became popular in New York City in the 80s and early 90s because of this bartender. So There you go.
So why is it sometimes called the Florida smash?
Yes, because and there were some recipes that called for a very I feel like labor intensive way of making a simple syrup. But essentially, Florida is known for its citrus. Obviously, everyone knows about
Okay.
oranges, but Florida has numerous other citruses that grow there. So I think it kind of stems from that. I think adding the lemon to it is what made
Because
it.
usually you think oranges when you think Florida.
Mhm. Yeah, there's actually a little bit of trivia later on for you guys. So we actually will tackle a couple other citruses that are popular in Florida as well.
Let's do it.
Excellent. I think
I
it's
know.
just the orange growers lobby in Florida is just a little stronger than the lemon growers lobby. We definitely have lemons down here.
I've never seen any lemons down there.
And we have key limes, which are just little baby runty limes. I'm pretty sure we also have regular limes. I would
Just
say.
no mint.
No, man.
Do you have a lemon or lime tree like in your neighborhood or near your house? I know my mom had one in Arizona. It was like whoever had owned the house before her planted them. But that was also pretty cool to kind of see. But is that like popular near you?
Yeah, there's definitely some. I can't think of one specific around me, but I know
Yeah.
that there are some in Miami. The big trees down in the more Cuban areas, which is where I live, is mango. Everyone's got a mango tree in their front or backyard, and the big giant, not like the little Haas avocados, like those big, huge ones. There's like 4 or 5 of those trees in my neighborhood.
Oh wow.
Are those like, can you eat them or no?
Oh yeah, they're delicious. They're way better than Haas avocados. Sorry, Mexico.
Is it the same? Like, does it taste the same? It's just bigger?
It's like a little creamier, the flavor and the texture. It's kind of smoother and kind of creamier, a little mellower. Definitely a good avocado if you're looking for one. They're also just like
I always
massive.
am.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen them, the big ones before.
Yeah, I mean,
Come visit. I will pick one from my neighbors, my brother-in-law.
Just run out there. Go get one real quick.
I'll do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Okay, so why don't we talk about I don't know if you guys caught this game. We can just quickly talk about it, but the episode last week talked about the Deep South's oldest rivalry, which is between Georgia and Auburn, and that was actually happened this last weekend. Did you guys happen to catch this game? I know there's a lot of better games on.
I didn't see any of it, but I did see that it got a little out of hand. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I didn't see. Oh my God, I just looked at the score. Yeah, I didn't see any of the game. I was doing a lot of work travel last week.
I saw the highlight on ESPN, and I thought at first it was like week 1 and they were playing like some no-name school, and then I saw it was Auburn. I was like, this doesn't make sense, but yeah.
I saw the line was 21 on Thursday, which is the day I usually do my picks for the pool. I saw it was 21. I'm like, isn't this a big rivalry? Shouldn't it be a little closer?
One would think.
I almost picked Auburn to cover it just because of that. And I mean, it wouldn't have mattered because we all went 0-3. But you know, they did not cover.
No. So for the listeners, Georgia won 42-10. I watched like the very beginning, so it got out of hand very quickly, and honestly, I mean that was to be expected. Auburn's really a mess right now with all their coaching issues. Don't have a quarterback. They're a bit of a mess, and Georgia had that scare against Missouri, so they kind of came out to really show people that they are the best team in the nation, and honestly, I don't blame anyone for not watching it because there were quite a few really good matchups and alternatives to this game. But I will say I did love before the game, so I caught like the pregame, and then I don't know, maybe the first series, and then I changed it. But they had some pretty cool montages of some really cool moments in the rivalry over the years. So that was honestly probably the best part of the game.
You could say everything that you just said about the Auburn Georgia game about several of the Sunday football games.
Yeah.
Including one of the co-host teams played one of my teams, and it didn't go well for the co-host team. And then your guys' team.
Yeah.
not the number one scoring offense anymore.
No, I mean, that was always bound to even out, but it just kind of
probably still the highest allowed defense though.
Yeah. Honestly, I bet you we're still probably top 5 just because of how obnoxious like the number they were putting up in those first 4 games were. But yeah, there was a lot of that went on this weekend. And then kind of transitioning, Doyle, you kind of mentioned it. So the pick 'em with the boys, it was an absolute bloodbath this weekend. Only person who even recorded a win was Nathan, who went 2-0-1. Everyone else went 0-3. Honestly, this entire season, like even if you really break it down, so it's out of 18 total picks thus far, and Mike has the lead at 8 wins. So it's just not been great at all for anyone in this college football pick'em. Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, now we're halfway through it. By now, hopefully, I guess depending on the person, maybe you've found a team that you feel pretty good about. Like I know last year I felt pretty good about Western Kentucky. Like every time they played, I had a pretty with Zappy, I had a pretty good feel for whether or not I wanted to bet them or not. So I don't know. I feel like there's a couple teams maybe that I'm starting to feel a little better about, but my curse is always I always end up, we only pick 3 for the week, and I always end up with like 5 that I really like, and then I end up always picking the wrong one. So like I liked UCLA this week. Mike and I both said we wouldn't pick Texas, even though we bet heavily on Texas, just like we weren't going to pick them for the pod because we both liked them. So there's always those times for me like where I end up just picking wrong for the pod, but it's been terrible. But so the rankings, just so you guys have the updated rankings right now. So Mike is in the lead with 8 wins. Nathan has 6.5 because we count he had a push with TCU this week. So we'll count that as a half point. Doyle, you have 6. Joe, you have 3, even though you didn't give us picks last week, but
you're not too bad. I think
you're still in it.
It.
Yeah, there you go. I've done every week and I only have 2, which is not great. And then Jimmy and Chris both have 1. So any listeners out there that still haven't joined us, we're halfway through, and Mike's the best of us at 8 and 10. So you really have a chance to catch us and beat us. So please join if you haven't already. And for everyone else that has been, keep sending them in because you can definitely beat the hosts and earn yourself a nice little prize. And this week actually has some really cool games, some good matchups as well. So it should be just overall an exciting weekend in college football and probably a hard one to pick. Okay, so why don't we get into the actual episode today and talk about our trophy. So I mentioned today we're talking about the Makala trophy, which is played between in-state rivals of Florida and Florida State. So a little fun fact for you guys here. Until the pandemic and the SEC's decision to only play like an inter-conference schedule, this rivalry actually had the 4th largest non-interrupted rivalry. And that was only behind Iowa State and Kansas State, Navy and Notre Dame, and Cal and UCLA. And I feel like that's actually pretty impressive because the first matchup between these 2 schools didn't start until 1958. So it's pretty much like ever since it started, they played pretty consecutively, which I think is pretty awesome. And hopefully that continues. Obviously, with all these, the realignment for college football, you just never know what's gonna happen. I don't know if you guys caught the news a couple weeks ago, but Bedlam seems to be kind of dead in the water. That seems to be one of the first major casualties to rivalries with this new alignment with Oklahoma going to the SEC. So
I think that's what you're going to see though. Once all the realignments, you're going to lose some of those rivalries and lose some of those games that you're used to seeing, kind of for better or worse. This one for worse.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully, at least this one. I mean, I don't know what's going to end up happening with the ACC, but hopefully this stays as long as possible. But before we get into the rivalry, so we've been asking ahead of time what you guys think the trophy looks like. So what are your guys' best guesses as to what this trophy looks like.
I'm gonna go with the big orange.
Okay, that's a good guess. Doyle, what do you think?
And I'm gonna go with. I kind of think it's something Seminole related, just because of obviously Florida State Seminoles. The state government also kind of loves the Seminoles. So
Casino?
No, yeah, casino.
It's a slot machine.
It just, I mean,
I like to change mine to a
it's
slot
just going to be
machine.
like a big guitar, basically.
The hotel.
I think that would make a great trophy. It's just a guitar. But I'm going to say something kind of stick shaped that incorporates something Gatory and something Seminole. That's my. It's such a non-answer, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
Sticky and Seminole.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will see if either of you guys are right in a little bit. So a little bit about the history of this rivalry. So I mentioned the first matchup was in 1958, and Florida won that one 21-7. And Florida ended up winning the first 16 of the first 19 matchups. However, the overall series lead, Florida leads it, but it's 37 wins to 26 losses to 2 ties. So it actually kind of evened itself out a little bit there. And Florida most recently has won the last 3. But given this year, this actually might be the year that Florida State finally wins one. But basically, Florida dominated, as I just mentioned, for the beginning of the series until Bobby Bowden became the Florida State head coach in 1976, and that's when the rivalry just became way more competitive. And then the intensity level really rose to its highest point in the 1990s. But when the Gators had Steve Spurrier take over and play Bowden, their late season matchup turned into top 10 rankings. Like, it was always a contest with the 2 teams in the top 10. And for an entire decade, it basically, the matchup had national championship implications. So the winner of the game would go on to compete for the national championship in 6 of the 10 seasons in the 1990s. So 93, 95, 96, 98, 99, and 2000 were all one of those 2 ended up going to the national championship. So very, very, very important for this rivalry, but I'll give you guys a little bit more details in a little bit. So because this is an in-state rivalry, that means that we have to do some Florida State history trivia. So Doyle,
here comes our native.
Don't let Joe beat you in this this trivia here, because you're a local now.
Does Kristen test you every night on your flashcards?
No, she's the real local here.
That's what I'm saying. You have to. She needs to teach you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll see how you do. So this first question: when Florida joined the Union, it became the blank number state to join. So was it the 18th state to join, B, the 22nd, C, the 27th, or D, the 33rd state to join the Union?
I'm going C, 27, and just for no reason, I have no idea.
It was sometime like in the 1800s. I think it was like right around the Civil War. So I'm thinking like 18. I'm thinking A.
Okay, one of you guys got it right. The correct answer was C, the 27th state. There you go. Joe's up 1-0. All right, so this one might be more of a gimme. What is the state flower? Is it A, the orange blossom, B, the violet, C, a wild rose, or D, a dogwood?
I'm thinking it's A. I think it's orange blossom.
I feel like that's too easy, but based on what he just said, I guess I'll go A as well.
You're both correct. It is A, the orange blossom. Way to go, guys.
I told you, the orange growers, man. They pour a lot of money up into Tallahassee.
Here you go. So this is related to that. So question number 3. So Florida is the 2nd biggest producer of orange juice in the world. What is the first? Is it A, South Africa, B, Mexico, C, Brazil, or D, Germany?
It's gotta be B. Mexico.
Doyle?
Well, I know it's not Germany. I mean, I'll be shocked if it's Germany. I'm gonna go with Brazil.
The correct answer is C, Brazil.
Ooh.
So Brazil produces around 1 million tons of orange juice a year, compared to about 245,000 by the US, and about 70% of that 245,000 comes from Florida.
I figured Brazil's climate's a little more similar to Florida's than Mexico. Mexico's a little more mountainy.
Yeah. All right, we got ourselves a tie here. So question number 4. So while Florida is the second largest producer of orange juice, Florida is the largest producer of a different fruit. What is it? Is it A, pineapple, B, mango, C, lemon, or D, grapefruit?
I'm gonna go with D. Grapefruit.
Doyle?
I also think it's D, but I'm gonna say mango just for the. I think it also could be mango, given how much of it grows down here in Miami, in the streets. But I also just want to be different. Just gonna roll with different.
Well, you shouldn't have. You should have betted on the last question of the game. But yes, it is D, grapefruit. All right, last question here. Yeah. Here's the last question. How many theme parks are in Florida? Is it A, 5, B, 6, C, 8, or D, 10?
Well, so like you're telling me, like, is Epcot like the same? Is that part of Disney, or are these all different?
Yep.
I'm going
Count them differently.
Oof, I'll go.
Oh, you can't get into Epcot with a Magic Kingdom ticket.
I'm going D10.
I'm gonna go C8.
And I think Doyle, I think you need to give Joe your license here, because he's the real Florida resident. It is 10. Can you guys name the 10?
IPP.
Okay, so there's Epcot, Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Universal,
SeaWorld.
SeaWorld, love it. Oh my God.
5 more.
Is there like a Busch Gardens, Six Flags, any of those?
There's
Busch Gardens.
I don't think I'm done with Disney. I think there's more Disney.
There's one more Disney.
Oh boy.
You said Epcot?
Yep. So you guys have said Magic Kingdom.
What about the
Animal Kingdom.
what about Animal wait, no. Is Animal Kingdom the same as the Safari one?
Yes, it's an Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
Yep. So you have 4 more.
We were gonna go to it before Kristen went into anaphylaxis. That was our destination for the day. And then her allergy ruined it. God.
What else do we got here, guys?
We're contemplatively taking a drink.
4 more.
Joker Merchant.
No, not quite.
Oh man.
What's the other Universal one? So it's Universal Studios and with roller coasters. Islands of Adventure. The other Disney one is Hollywood Studios.
Oh, Hollywood Studios. Yeah.
And then the other 2 is Discovery Cove and Legoland.
Legoland.
That's a whole park.
That's also in Orlando.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is Wet n Wild count? Is that still a thing?
I
don't think.
I don't think so. I think they replaced it with I think it's a volcano,
that one was. I loved that one. That's the water park.
Yeah, that one was fun. I like that one too.
When are you guys going to bring your respective children down to the magic of Disney?
Well, they can't even walk yet. So
yeah.
Well, that didn't stop Kristen from having us bring the boys to Disney when they were it was in April, so they were 1.5.
Well, it's a little bit easier trip for you guys.
They could walk, theoretically.
I don't know, probably. Yeah, probably sooner-ish. I mean, probably preferably when at least like Chloe maybe recognizes something like a Mickey Mouse or something, something that would get her like excited about it. I know like my one of my neighbors, they took their son to Disney a couple of times, and he's just over a year old, but I think one of his favorite people is Mickey Mouse. So I guess it was just a lot of fun for him to see Mickey Mouse there.
At some point, Mickey just becomes a favorite word that they say at random intervals. Mickey, Elmo's another one. I don't know what it is about that mouse, but the children just love it.
So I kind of have a little bonus segment here, but it's really not like, it was just something that I thought was interesting in the sense that like I can't talk about Florida without talking about the typical Florida man headlines. So there were 4 headlines that kind of drew my attention. So I thought I'd just share these with you guys. So the first headline is Florida man jumps into Bass Pro Shop's fish tank in South Florida. So apparently this is an actual like real serious problem for the state of Florida, is people jumping into these massive fish tanks. For instance, so in South Florida, it doesn't say exactly where, but the guy climbed up the fake rock wall, dove into the fish tank. But it actually has a really severe punishment, but I couldn't find exactly what the punishment was. But I mean, I can honestly say, I don't know about you guys. I've thought about it. Like I've always thought like, man, those tanks are huge. I wonder if anyone.
What's the point? Is he trying to get a fish?
Just go swimming.
I think just like a prank, like to get it on video.
Look, guys, it's really hot down here. You just wanted to take a dip.
So go into the air conditioning and then jump into the tank.
All right, this one's a little bit more terrifying. So Florida man accused of jumping naked on neighbor's trampoline before breaking into home.
I mean,
I have thought about doing that.
If you're gonna break into someone's house, you're gonna have some fun first.
Yeah, so a Florida man in Lee County stripped down naked and jumped on a neighbor's trampoline. So apparently he was a neighbor. And then after jumping on the trampoline naked, he later broke into the house, but the family hid in the car. And then obviously the officers were pretty quick to get him out of their house and charged him with criminal mischief.
So Lee County, I think, is just north of Tampa. I'm a little surprised this didn't end with him getting, shot. And that's how I would have thought that story ends. But
not that I know of, but potentially, maybe once I got him back to the station,
No, not by the police, by the homeowner. Cowering in his car. I would have assumed. Look, we have stand your ground here. Like,
that's right.
You just shoot as soon as anyone comes in.
I guess maybe because it was a neighbor, maybe they knew him. I don't know. They saved it.
Oh, I lied. It's in Fort Myers. That's where Lee County is.
Okay, so south of Tampa. You were at least on the right side and pretty close.
I knew it was on the Gulf. I thought it was north, but.
So this is one that potentially, I mean, I don't think either of us would ever do, or any of us would ever do this, but said lame dad joke gets Florida man banned from Disney World for life. So in 2015, David Swindle and his family stayed at the Pop Century Resort at Disney World. They had a tough time dealing with the staff after making a few requests. So at one point, the Florida man joked that he could build a meth lab in the room in the time it took for the staff to help him. As it turns out, the staff called the police and they raided his room and then subsequently banned him from all Disney properties for making it dumb. I think that's a little over the top.
Yeah,
literally,
somebody was just pissed.
Yeah,
that's not really a dad joke. It's not. I mean,
well, I could build a meth lab in here by the time you guys get this thing cleaned up.
I mean, unless your dad's like Walter White, I guess. But
yeah, maybe he just like looked like him, and they're like, oh, maybe he actually does have a meth lab up there.
Walk around with a pork pie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a little ridiculous, but yeah, I bet you the staff was probably just really pissed at him. And then just the last one here: Florida man arrested after arrested for calling 911 after kitten denied entry into strip club. So in 2012, a Florida man became irate.
Wouldn't let the pussy into the strip club.
They
there's a lame dad joke. I found one. Good there.
I'm banned.
Yep.
For life.
Oh, you definitely could make that joke at Disney.
Puss in Boots.
In 2012, a Florida man became irate when a strip club wouldn't let him enter in with his kitten. He felt that his kitten had every right to enjoy the gentleman's club. So when the club wouldn't let him in, he phoned 911 several times. Eventually, police officers arrived on the scene, but did not help the man or his kitty. Instead, the police arrested the Florida man for multiple charges, including making the 911 calls.
Then Tampa.
It doesn't say.
I think that area is, Doyle, you might know, not from experience, but just as a Florida resident. I think, isn't Tampa like the area with the most like strip clubs per square mile or whatever? I thought I heard that somewhere.
That might be right. I know the Florida Panthers found a couple when they were down 3-0 at
Oh, that's right.
Did you hear about this story?
Yeah, they got caught, went out late, and then they played like shit the next day.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're down 3-0 against Tampa Bay Lightning, so might as well. But yeah, I think that's right. I think Tampa Bay
I think we were in Florida or in Tampa area for Gasparilla, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I feel like someone told me that then when we were there, but I cannot confirm because we did not go.
Yeah, that seems pretty ridiculous. But
So the reason why there's a lot of these Florida man stories is because we have in Florida, there's very strict requirements as to what has to be made public record. And these arrest records they have to be made public record. So every time someone gets arrested for something stupid, it's made public. And of course it becomes a fun news story because, I mean, they're
pretty ridiculous.
They're for sure ridiculous.
You definitely have stuff like this going on everywhere, but I'm guessing that's why it's getting publicized.
I wonder how that became popular. Like what person was the first one to recognize like that trend of
I think someone just saw they kept seeing this phrase and these crazy stories.
The Florida man.
The Florida man.
Yeah, it's just
Doyle is a Florida man.
I am. It's true. I think it's a deep-seated I don't know, suspiciousness of government generally, where it's like anytime the government puts something out, it must be made public.
Well, it started with the Seminoles. They were Florida men.
They were the Florida.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we take a quick break and then we will get back into this rivalry, and then eventually I will show you guys this beautiful trophy that we have. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right, we will be back in a second. All right, everyone, welcome back. So why don't we jump right into the rest of this rivalry? So our story actually starts way back in 1905. Sorry, this is a bit of a history lesson, but it'll kind of really paint the picture, hopefully for you guys, of this rivalry. But it starts way back in 1905 with the passage of the Buckman Act, and that had abolished the co-educational Florida State College and rededicated its Tallahassee campus as the all-women Florida Female College for all of the 1905 fall term. So that ended the program, the football program at the time, for what would end up being Florida, actually. So the college name officially changed to Florida State College for Women in 1909. So
the team was all women at that time?
This was the football program had ended once the school became an all women's school. So they did not let the women play football.
How Powder Puff started?
Maybe they got really mad and wanted to play. So at the same time, the 4 state supported schools, so included East Florida Seminary and Florida Agricultural College, were consolidated to establish the new University of the State of Florida for males in Gainesville. So you had your women's college in Tallahassee, and you had your male college in Gainesville. So the Florida State College's last football coach before the school went to all women's, Jack Forsyth, was hired to lead the University of the State of Florida's male football program in 1906. So that's when the Gators started. And the school would shorten the name to the University of Florida in 1909, and then took the nickname the Gators in 1911. And I think we had mentioned in an earlier podcast episode that it was a founding member of the SEC in 1932. So that's kind of where the origins of Florida came from. So Florida State, as we know it, had not been created yet, hence why this rivalry didn't start until much later. So the Florida State legislature reorganized the state's university system again in 1947 to accommodate the post-World War II surge in college enrollment. And both the University of Florida and the Florida State College for Women became coeducational again. And the Tallahassee institution became Florida State University. So Florida State established the football program in 1947 and was a founding member of the non-scholarship Dixie Conference, along with other several smaller schools. But in 1951, Florida State left that Dixie Conference and began offering football scholarships and scheduled their first games against major college programs as an independent, at which point the university officials and supporters began calling for games against the Gators. So 1951 is about the time that Florida State really became the program that we know it now. However, of course, the start of this series, University of Florida administration did not want to treat Florida State University as an equal. They were very reluctant to do that, less for reasons of the sports rivalry and more, of course, it always comes back to money, more because of limited state funding for higher education at the time and the perception that Florida State's demands for a greater share of those funds might undercut the University of Florida's role as the state's historic flagship university. So as this impasse kind of dragged on, a bill was proposed in 1955, which mandated that the two schools had to compete against each other in football and other sports. While the bill was voted down, the governor at the time, Leroy Collins, what a fantastic name, Leroy Collins. Personally requested to the University of Florida president, J. Wayne Wrights, that he take the lead in starting a yearly football series between the two state universities. Wrights, I believe is how you say it, agreed, and the schools negotiated a contract that began the football series in 1958, the first available opening at the time for the Florida Gators non-conference schedule. So I know that was exhausting, but that's why it started so late as a series, but at least once it started, it ran continuously until, unfortunately, COVID stopped it. So one of the stipulations in that first contract was the games would all be played at Gators' home stadium, the Florida Field in Gainesville, because the Seminoles' home field at Doak Campbell Stadium, which is crazy that it's been the same name now for however many years since its inception. And do you guys know who Doak Campbell was?
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah. Doak Campbell, which I didn't know either, was the first president of Florida State University. So that's what it's named after.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, the series had to be played in Gainesville because Florida State's stadium at the time only held under 20,000 people. And the Florida State initiated a series of expansions in 1964. So the game site has alternated since then, since the expansion to the stadiums, a home and away series between Gainesville and Tallahassee ever since 1964.
I think it's funny that they refused to play in the 1950s in a stadium that would be like a decent sized Premier League stadium, or like, a huge hockey arena by today's standards.
Yeah, I mean, another point to that is like, I don't think every school should have massive ones, right? They should know how many people they get there. So a great example of that is Northwestern. So Northwestern's building this brand new, beautiful state-of-the-art stadium, but it's going to be smaller than their current one, but it's going to feel, I think, more like a soccer stadium, but it's intimate. But that makes it better, right? If you can get even if it's less people, if they're closer to this field and it's a smaller stadium, it's still going to be loud.
It's a really bad look if you can't fill a stadium. Like thinking like the Utah, who they play last year, it was a great game. Was it Oregon? That Utah-Oregon game was empty. So same thing with is it USC?
UCLA, the Rose
UCLA,
Bowl.
yeah,
No one's
yeah.
filling the Rose Bowl.
They can't fill it, so it
Yeah.
just looks horrible. I mean, even if it's a smaller stadium, like it's
Yeah.
worth making it a little bit smaller, knowing that it's going to sell out or that it's going to be close, than having it look like your program has no interest.
Well, I mean, even in I think this is a modern trend in stadium builds, because the new Buffalo Bills Stadium, the current stadium holds 76, I think, thousand, and they're knocking it down to 60 or 65, somewhere in there. And I think that's just a modern, I don't know if that counts standing room only kind of areas, because that's a modern thing, is having like a little bar area where everyone stands. But also just like making them smaller and more intimate, I think is a modern trend.
And you can charge more.
Yeah, you can charge more.
Right.
That's probably not going to fly in Buffalo, New York, but you can try to charge more.
Well, I think the idea would be like the resale, right? Like, because it's hard to get a ticket, like you can make it harder than it has been to get a ticket. So, but yeah, I agree. I just think
the interest in Buffalo, there's so much demand for tickets that you can charge more. I'm not saying double the price, but you can charge more because people will still go.
No, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Is like, I'm probably living through the golden age of Buffalo Bills football. I mean, they're like a historic offense, like how good they are. And it's like, I think a lot about the Michael Scott quote. It's like, if only we knew that we were living in the best times when they were happening. It's like, I just appreciate all the Bill stuff, just living through 17 years of just terrible, rancid, but not so bad we get the good pick, just like mediocre, like solidly mediocre football.
How about 30?
Yeah. But I mean, the difference is that you guys had like a 1, 2, 3, or 4 pick for like us. So you were like the Edmonton,
and they're still bad.
You guys are like the Edmonton Oilers of the NFL. I mean, the Edmonton's finally making that work. I mean, we're crossing into professional football and professional hockey now. Really,
and
really
with stadiums.
All the whiskey and whiskers sweet spots demographically, but yeah, Edmonton had the #1 overall pick.
So Jared Goff is Connor McDavid.
Oh my God, sure.
At first overall
first round
right?
pick, or first overall. Yeah, great.
I mean, when
So
he takes
excited.
us to the playoffs next year, then we can start drawing those comparisons. That's fair.
Well, Edmonton's never won a cup, so if you're gonna follow in those footsteps, you gotta
same.
Hey, they're finally at least looking like winning playoff games, so that's a start.
What they did conference final last year?
No.
Yeah,
I thought they did.
Did they? Conference? Oh, yeah.
They were
Colorado.
like a game away
that's
from.
Right. Yeah.
Evander Kane went nuts for.
He bet on himself.
Oh man.
All right, so back to football.
Okay, college football.
So, like I had mentioned earlier, that the series was dominated early by the Gators. Florida won the first 3 contests before a 3-3 tie in 1961. That the Gator coach Ray Graves likened to, quote, a death in the family. So it was not a great day for the Gators. So, like I had mentioned, this continued until 1976, when the legendary Bobby
Was this on a Thursday night? Was this Thursday night football?
Yes, 3-3.
Like last week's game.
It was on Amazon Prime too.
Yeah.
I mean, this week is the Commanders and the Bears, so it's probably going to be very similar. So, and the Bears are wearing their all orange stuff, so it should be gross. But yeah, so Bowden came to Florida State in 1976. Began to turn the program around. So after losing his first game against Florida in 1976, the Seminoles would win the next 4, and their first win in the series since 1967. This would begin a decade and a half in which the rivals would take turns, pretty much just having winning streaks off of each other. And then I had also mentioned earlier that it really, the rivalry really was taken to the highest level in the 90s when former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback for Florida, Steve Spurrier, returned back to the Gators to coach them in 1990. And during that, the 11 seasons that followed, Florida and Florida State rivalry reached its just peak. And I had mentioned before, there was all of those, I think it was 6 out of the 10 in that decade. One of those teams made an appearance in the national championship game. So a very, very important end of the year game for both teams. And then let's see here. So because the Sugar Bowl, so they had rematches, two games played in 1994 and 1996. Florida and Florida State met 14 times in 12 seasons when Spurrier was the coach. And each time, one or both of the teams were ranked in the top 10. So really just peak rivalry. And then after all the matchups in 1996, one was the fiercest of the series. Both teams were undefeated and ranked 1 and 2. Florida was ranked 1, Florida State 2, coming into the regular season finale in Tallahassee, where the Seminoles won a tough game, 24-21. And then Florida would go on to win the SEC and earn a rematch against the Seminoles in the Sugar Bowl, where the Gators would win 52-20. And that was their first national championship in their 90-year history. And then the number 1 Florida State was undefeated coming into the 1997 contest against number 10 Gators in Gainesville, but Florida won again, 32-29, with a late touchdown run by Fred Taylor, which is a blast from the past name there.
Played his pro ball here too.
Yes, down in up in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So after these setbacks, Florida State would win 3 straight over the top 4 Florida teams, winning in 1998 and 2000 in Tallahassee, and the 98 contest in Gainesville. After that win, it was there on their way to a second national championship that year. Just to kind of recap here, Florida State and Florida combined for 14 conference championships and 3 national championships during the 1990s. In addition, the winner of the game would play for the national championship 6 times in that decade. Through those years, Florida State held a 7-4-1 advantage in the rivalry. That was obviously arguably the most important time in college football at the time, or college football games during that time. So then kind of get to the tail end of Florida State's glory here, Bowden retired and Urban Meyer, that fella, joined the Florida staff. So in 2009, the Florida State game marked Bowden's 36th year against the Gators, 36th game in 34 seasons against the Gators as the Seminoles head coach. And it was also his last. He would retire after 2009. And he finished his head coaching career with a 17 wins, 18 losses, and 1 tie record against the Gators. And remarkably, Bowden's 34 years in Tallahassee spanned the 10 years of 7 different Gators head coaches, which is pretty crazy. And then Florida State ended their winning streak with Florida in 2010 under the first-year head coach Jimbo Fisher, who led the Seminoles to a win in Tallahassee that year.
Was that against Tebow?
2010. It probably.
I think Tebow was gone.
Tebow was already gone.
Broncos then.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can't talk about Florida without mentioning the 2008 University of Florida Gators, right?
Who was on that team?
What's that?
I said, who was on that team?
Pouncies, Hernandez.
Well, Tim Tebow, of course, is who the University of Florida wants to talk about.
Right.
But there were others that were maybe not so wholesome. Tebow was drafted in 2010, so it was not Tim Tebow.
Okay. So it doesn't say here, or I didn't catch exactly when Urban Meyer came. I think he started coaching the Florida Gators a little bit earlier than that 2009 year of Bowden's retirement. But in 2010, Jimbo Fisher took over and broke the winning streak for Urban Meyer. I guess I can answer this. So he would have joined in 2004. Yeah, okay. So 2010, that year that Jimbo beat the Gators, was Urban Meyer's last game as coach of the Florida Gators, and it was actually his only loss to Florida State in 6 meetings. So obviously Urban had a great career there at Florida before he had his health issues. That then led him to Ohio State.
Keep flaring up. Jacksonville, Florida's not good. He is the Florida man.
I was gonna say, if your segue with the Florida man headlines is so perfect for these two teams because there are Florida men on both these teams. I mean, obviously, I was alluding in 2008 to Mr. Aaron Hernandez, who is the quintessential Florida man.
Yeah, Ponzi's,
but there's Jackrabbit. Also, the crab legs and
that's on the other side.
He is in State.
That is true.
Yeah, Janus.
I think that's probably the most Florida man of this.
Stealing the crab legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doyle, have you had anything happen to you that makes you a Florida man yet?
No, I'm a lawyer, so I can't it's like under the suit that I have the Florida man.
Okay.
It's like buried under there.
We haven't gone to visit yet, though.
Yeah.
I tie the necktie really tight to keep the Florida man.
We'll have to maybe once you retire, maybe that's when the Florida man you'll have been there for probably.
No, there's a Florida man there.
just gotta bring him out.
Yeah, we gotta get down there.
All right, guys, we are finally at the moment. Please take a look at this beautiful trophy and tell me what you think.
It's not an orange.
It is not an orange.
No orange is in sight.
But there is a gator, and there is
a Florida man.
A literal
That's the original.
Florida man. And he's doing the most Florida man thing. He is fighting an alligator.
No, he's not. He's T-bowing.
That's sacrilege. That's not the right Florida.
All right, why don't one of you guys describe what you're looking at here for our listeners? What does it look like?
Well, I think Joe's alluded to it. We've got a Seminole on the left side of what appears to be an 8 to 12-inch wooden block.
Wait, hold on. Where are you getting these measurements?
I'm just eyeballing, like, based on the size of the plaque and how.
There's nothing for reference.
There's nothing other than like how legible that font has to be.
The picture frames in the back, I guess. I mean, you can guess how big those pictures.
Oh, you're looking at the second picture.
Yeah.
What's that? Is that a flag or something next to it?
Yeah, I think that's just where it's
pole?
like standing. I don't think it has anything to do with the actual trophy.
That's like the national championship trophy. It's about
maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet.
It's like 3/4 of the national championship trophy, right?
It looks, okay, the base of it looks like a curb, like in a parking lot that you pull up to at a
it's got a little slant. It's a rhombus. I think that's a shape. The rhombus.
It's a pentarhombus.
So the left like 2 or 3/8, I would say, of the trophy is a kneeling Seminole in a fighting stance. And the remainder of the trophy is this giant alligator. So it looks like the Seminole wants to fight the alligator, which is the most Florida thing you could do.
You think it's fight or is it a peaceful thing?
It is a fight.
Oh, it's got to be.
It's a fight.
It is a fight.
Right? Although, so EJ, in the first picture, both of the plaques are, yes, I'm leading you into something. Both of the plaques are orange and blue. But in the second picture, the Gator side is orange and blue, and the Seminole side is the gold and crimson of Florida State.
I can't give you an answer why.
I think what happened was, excuse me. I think what happened is that has the scores and the dates. They probably ran out of dates and replaced it, but said, why the hell do we have 2 blue and orange? Let's do this side. One side, Florida State colors.
Honestly, that's probably correct.
Because it does have, it has a list of dates and probably scores.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they had to replace it, and they said, well, the hell, why don't we do our side, our colors?
So I've noticed that it's presented by the St. Petersburg Exchange Club, which is where exactly none of these schools are even close to.
Yeah.
That's that's super strange.
Other side of the state.
Yeah.
Are we sure it's not St. Petersburg, Russia?
Yes.
It could be.
Because that also is very far away.
About as close to Gainesville as St. Petersburg, Florida, though, to be honest.
Okay, so why don't I give you guys a little bit of details here? I was able to find a little bit, not too much, like some useful information, some not. So little is actually known about like the origins of it, but the legend has it that the wooden trophy, so the actual Seminole and the Gator part of it, was carved out of a big cypress tree somewhere in present day Jerome, which is in Collier County. By an unnamed Native American leader sometime in the 1700s. And it's aimed to depict a Seminole chief fighting off a vicious alligator to protect his people, is what it is supposed to be. And it was presented by the St. Petersburg based civic group, the Exchange Club. And it was kind of dreamt up by the chairman, which is Robert Melby. So Melby said that the club wanted to replicate the little brown jug passed between the winner of Michigan versus Minnesota, the old oaken bucket passed between Indiana and Purdue, or the Paul Bunyan Trophy passed between Michigan and Michigan State. So this is what Melby had to say in quotations. I'm originally from Minnesota. And I know the little brown jug is really very important in that neck of the woods. That this was the idea behind this, to have a little symbol going back and forth between the two schools. And they were just trying to essentially establish something to represent the rivalry between the two schools.
He said that from his condo in the Villages, Florida, right?
Probably, yes. So the trophy is presented at a banquet held in St. Petersburg in April of each year. So I'm kind of paraphrasing Melby, but the intention was never to have this trophy be exchanged during a banquet. It was really meant to be exchanged between the team, like the players and the teams on the field. However, it just hasn't been that. And I know that they've tried to get the schools kind of on board of doing that, but they haven't been successful.
So they don't bring it to the game?
No, so it's like there's a banquet held every year in April, and it's exchanged in between, like by officials and stuff. So it is unfortunately a little bit of a boring like exchange, but it sounds like they've tried to change that, but no success thus far. So I think we just need to add it to the list of movements we're going to make as a podcast to get the battle for the beer barrel reintroduced, and now get this trophy exchanged on the field between players. That's what we need. So he did also say that the tradition of the trophy has caught on, but he's a little disappointed that neither team has paid the ultimate compliment, which is stealing it from its rightful winners. So he says
he's a true Big Ten guy.
Yeah, I know. This guy's just, in the wrong
just
spot.
bored down in Florida.
He's trying to make things happen.
I'm telling you, in the Villages, it's a retirement haven. You just get a little bored sometimes.
Yeah.
You think about
sitting in the trailer all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for us, guys. So why don't we get to our rankings here? So just to give everyone a reminder, we rank on a scale from 1 to 5 for the looks of the trophy, the history of the trophy, the history of the rivalry, and the overall competitiveness of the rivalry, and then whether we think that is a bottom tier, middle tier, or top tier. So Doyle, why don't you start us off? What do you think? What do you think for looks? What do you got?
I like the looks. It looks like a Big Ten trophy. If that was the goal, I think they accomplished that.
Okay.
It does have that, like, it looks like it's been stolen. Let's put it that way. It looks old. It looks like it has a history.
They don't even care enough to steal this thing.
So in terms of looks, given that that's a backstory, I'm gonna give it a solid 4.
Okay. What about history of the trophy?
History's a big bummer. I'm a little bummed out that they don't award this thing on the field. I feel like that would add to the history of the trophy. Like I said, it looks like it has history, but much like the state of Florida itself, it does not have any history. So I'm going to give it a 1 on the history.
Harsh.
I am just an extremist. I'm either all in or nothing at all. Rivalry, it's been pretty close. But there's also been moments in the rivalry where there's been a dominant team, which kind of takes away from it. So I'm going to just go right down the middle and say a 3.
Okay.
Competitiveness. So that's more, I guess that's more competitiveness. I'm going to give
Okay.
competitiveness a 3. Rivalry, I'm going to give a 4 just because it's very important for the state. I remember like as a kid, I would come down to Florida every Thanksgiving, and the game is always like the Friday or Saturday, I think, after Thanksgiving. And it's always like headline news basically everywhere in the state. It's a very, very important in the state, which is ironic because I thought these teams would be the second and third best teams in the state at the beginning of the season. My Hurricanes have let me down a little bit. So rivalry, I'm going to give a 4. Competitiveness, I give it 3. Overall, I'm going to give it top tier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe?
So top tier?
I did. You could go middle tier. I wouldn't be insulted if it went middle tier, but I like the traditional look of it, even though it doesn't have its own tradition. I feel like that's very symbolistic of the state itself, where it looks like it should be old, but it's not really that old.
So looks, I'm gonna go 3.5, 3.5.
Okay.
It's unique. It's got some character. It's got the Seminole. It's got the Gator. It's carved. It looks like it's probably hand carved. So yeah, it's unique. I think a lot of these trophies look very similar, as they're heavy on the wood, which makes me think like 80s, 90s. I don't know why, but a lot of wood. Two different shades of wood here, types of wood here, a lot of wood going on. So 3.5 for that. The history, I'm gonna go 2. This is a kind of a newer trophy compared to a lot of the other ones that we've seen, especially Big Ten, where they're dating back to the 1800s. This is 1958 was their first meeting, so it's fairly new in the big picture. So I'm gonna go 2 for history. Rivalry, I'm gonna go 4. Looks like it's pretty close, and both these teams, it could be hit or miss each year. It could be great, it could be horrible. I think more than not, they're better teams, so should be fun. I know this year I'm kind of looking forward to it because I might have a potential quarterback candidate to watch. So yeah, 4 for competitiveness.
Talking about Richardson?
Yeah. And overall tier, I'm going low bottom basement tier because they don't even care about this trophy enough to bring to the game. So it's a low tier.
Okay.
I said I wouldn't be insulted about middle tier. I am insulted about bottom tier.
Well, you should tell your fellow Florida men to care more.
They care about the revenue. They don't care about the trophy, which is sad. But
that's same.
I agree. So EJ, first, Collier County is where they get the trees or where they got the trees. That's Naples, Florida.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so Southwest.
Yeah, probably got those from the Everglades before that was illegal, but you know. What is a Makala? Where is the name?
Is that a Seminole word?
That is a very, very good question that I couldn't get an exact answer for. I looked really hard. I assume, yes, it has to do probably with the Seminole aspect of it, but I really couldn't find a straight answer. All right, so for me, I'm completely different than all of you guys. Looks, I love its uniqueness. I love that it incorporates both schools. It was hand carved allegedly in the 1700s. So looks, it's a 4.5 for me. I love uniqueness. We get a lot of like trophies. So anytime,
big fan of wood.
Anytime something's different, yes, even if it is wood, I like it. The history of
wood.
it,
I like wood. Just it's a lot of wood.
The history of it, see, I thought of it a little differently. I went a little higher. I said 4. I definitely agree with the reservations you guys have. I guess while it doesn't have a ton of like information on why it was started as the trophy, the fact that it is like the actual top part of it dates back to, hundreds and hundreds of years. That's why I give it a little higher on that.
Can we confirm that though? Or is that just like...
I think it was definitely confirmed that it was like old. I don't know they know exactly when or exactly how, but I think they have confirmed that it dates back to a couple hundred years ago, the top pieces. But again, I don't know how they
Not
found
just some
it,
dude
who
like
found
in the
it.
50s or 60s, like, oh yeah, this is a couple hundred years old. There you go.
Yeah, so I think they somehow like carbon dated it back, but I don't know how they like came into like having it. So that's why I can't give it like all the way up.
Sure.
So maybe 4 is a little high, but I just really think that that's pretty unique. The rivalry, I mean, at one point it was the best rivalry for a decade in college football. So I have it at a 4.5. It's in-state rivalry, and it's 2 major programs, even though they've been a little down in recent years. And then the competitiveness, I have it as a 4.5 as well. Just again, like it's pretty close, even like especially if you look at modern day and don't look way back, when Florida State was just starting off as a school. It's much, much closer in modern day. So it's actually going to be one of my first top tier of the season. So yeah, I think overall it was pretty interesting. I don't know. I guess we were young, we were just kids during that era, but it was pretty interesting, like intense rivalry when I went back and looked at all the different games and the importance of those games every year. That must have been agonizing as a fan of one of those schools, but great for everyone else to watch. And you kind of hope, in my eyes, like I would love Michigan State to be that on a regular basis, really be like that meaningful. But I guess we'll see. But that's gonna do it for us this week. So follow us on Instagram at whiskers.whiskies, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our Saturday morning bets. Please send us your bets. If you haven't already joined our college pick'em, join. You have a really great shot at still beating us and earning yourself a prize. I'm really going to try and do better here, guys, but it's been quite a stinker really overall for all of us, but especially for me. And this game will be played at the end of the year, so we will preview this during rivalry week when the game is actually played. So join us next week when we talk about the Magnolia. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Cheers.